Hello everyone! First edition to Diecember this time, and of course it's SemiShira because honestly this prompt was too good to miss out on, especially in combination with SemiShira. So yeah. So buckle up, let's get into it. As always, special thanks to my lovely patrons and all of you who subscribe and watch these videos. Especially nowadays, you are very much keeping this channel alive and going, so thank you very much for that, and I hope you will enjoy. Are you sure you don't want me to come get you after you finish? It's going to be late. Semi had to smile as he draped his arm over Shirabu's shoulders, pressing a short kiss to his cheek. He would have never dreamed of hearing his boyfriend offering to come pick him up from anywhere, and yet here they were, discussing just that. It was truly endearing, and under different circumstances, he would never miss such an opportunity. But don't worry, it's not the first time I'll go home at night. Besides, you'll be tired from work. I can't possibly drag you all the way there. It's not that far. Still, there's no need for you to bother, really. I'll be fine. It's just 20 minutes. Sighing, Shirabu gently elbowed him into the ribs before he turned around to hug him. Yeah, 20 minutes through the worst part of the city, at night and in winter. You are exaggerating. Damn it, Eita, I'm worried. His shoulders slumped. I wish I could come. Not just because of that, but to hear you perform too. It's been a while since the last time. Semi hummed quietly, pulling Shirabu closer. It had indeed been almost a year since Shirabu last came to one of their performances. Semi hoped it could work out well this time since the band had a smaller performance in a club close by, but unfortunately, Shirabu's shifts were ruthless. It wasn't that big of a deal though. Of course, he would be much happier if he could see his boyfriend in the audience, but it wasn't the end of the world. A lot more concerts were about to come. Alas, Shirabu saw it differently and was on a several days long slump, now joined by worry about the safety of his way home. Why so suddenly, Semi had no idea. And while it was sweet to be cared for like this, he would much rather if Shirabu wasn't so nervous because of him. He pulled away a bit, just enough to get a proper kiss. I told you it's fine, and I promise I'll be careful on the way. I can call you when we finish if you want. That should be around the time you'll get home, right? Yeah. Okay, fine, but don't you dare to forget. He stabbed his finger into Semi's chest. And you will be on the call the whole way. No protests. Chuckling, Semi squeezed him in his arms, earning a surprised huff. But the way Shirabu hugged him back told him everything he needed to know. Alright, I promise. Against his expectations, he had a much better time than usual when they performed in larger clubs. The people were ecstatic and happy to dance to the beat, even singing along a few times, creating the electrifying atmosphere he loved so much. The only thing missing for his complete happiness was Shirabu, but knowing he was at least mentally with him warmed his heart the same way. After all, Shirabu was his first and most loyal fan. He couldn't possibly need much more than this in his life. He suffered through the usual swarm of squealing fans and soon bid his bandmates farewell, heading home in surprisingly high spirits. As promised, he took out his phone and dialed Shirabu's number, hoping he wasn't calling him into the car, or worse, to work. I wouldn't be surprised if they told him he has to stay longer again. But all thoughts dissipated when Shirabu picked up after just the second beep, suggesting he was already waiting for the call with the phone in his hand. Took you long enough. Semi snickered, adjusting the guitar case on his back as he swiftly made his way through the snowed over street. My deep apologies, my fans were persistent this time around. The grumpy huff from the other end made him smile even more. He decided not to tease his boyfriend further, slightly worried he might end up sleeping on the couch for the night, and instead focused on the soothing sounds in the background. Are you cooking already? Just started. I figured you would be hungry when you return. Guilty as charged. I'm starving. They didn't even offer us drinks, would you believe that? Wonder if they know who made them the profits tonight. He was still grumpy about that, but in the end, it meant he could go home earlier without getting delayed by being dragged to drink with his buddies. Silver lining and all that. How horrible. How was the show? It was great. Great people, really. I wish we had such a good audience every time, but I guess then it would lose its uniqueness, right? It's okay to wish for a good audience every time you perform. You should have that without even wishing for it. Semi blinked, stunned by Shirabu's soft tone. Not that Shirabu hadn't expressed interest in his music career or wishes before, but especially now after the recent troubles they faced, it made his heart melt. Ita? Everything okay? Yeah. It's so sweet when you are like this, you know? He didn't need to see Shirabu to know he was blushing. Like what? Accepting and supportive. Not that you aren't otherwise, but it's a nice reminder that you aren't ashamed of what I do. A short pause, followed by a soft sigh. Oh, Eita, I've never been ashamed of you or what you do. I told you before. I know. I'm grateful for that. For you. Shirabu cleared his throat and busied himself with something around cooking. Semi led him, for a moment just listening to the sounds of cutting and mixing in the background. The street was completely empty save for him, his footsteps echoing from the walls of the surrounding buildings. It was a cold but surprisingly peaceful night, and he found himself appreciating winter much more. Though I would kill to have gloves right now. He stopped to adjust the guitar on his back again, when a slightly delayed echo of footsteps froze him briefly in place. He turned around, but through the shadows created by the sparsely placed lampposts, he couldn't see anything. Ita? Huh? Is something wrong? You stopped. Semi chuckled, though it came out much more strangled than he intended. It's nothing. I think that paranoia of yours is rubbing off on me. What? Shaking his head, Semi continued forward, dismissing the sounds as just some weird echo and his mind playing tricks on him. However, he kept listening for any potential sounds behind him, just in case. It's fine, really. I'll be home soon anyway. He completely missed Shirabu's next words as, at the same moment, he heard another set of footsteps slightly out of rhythm with his, following him. It didn't have to mean anything, of course. He could just be paranoid, making a boogeyman from nothing. But he knew better than not to listen to his instincts. And his instinct was now screaming at him that this wasn't just a coincidence. I just walked by that old bookstore, remember it? There was a short pause on the other end. I guess? But why are you telling me that? Well, you asked how close I am, so I'm telling you. I didn't... Wait, what's wrong? I thought you had a better memory. I had that little concert for kids there last year. Rings a bell? Ada, what are you talking about? Why are you telling me where you are? I can't say that out loud. Ask something else, please. His mind raced to think of some other way to keep the conversation going while conveying the message, when Shirabu's sharp inhale stopped him. Someone's around you. Is that what you are trying to tell me? He barely managed to suppress the sigh of relief. Yep, that's the one. I knew you would figure it out. Are you in danger? Not sure. I would say about 10 minutes. Maybe a bit more. It's slippery out here. Okay, I'm coming too. Continue on. I'll meet you somewhere along the way. Wait, no, you don't have to search it up. Shut it, I'm coming too. Hold on. Sammy bit the inside of his cheek, straining his ears to hear whether the footsteps were getting closer, but the sound distortion was too much even for his hearing. However, that someone was still behind him, which alone was enough to make him speed up. Eita? Come on, don't be silent now of all times. Keep talking. Sammy almost flinched at the panic strain in Shirabu's voice. Right, sorry. Anyway, I'll be home soon, so don't you dare to start the next episode without me. I know you well enough. That's why I'm saying it. Then, as suddenly as the footsteps appeared, the sound was gone, and he was left in a strange silence. A quick look over his shoulder didn't reveal much more than before, though it might have been a good thing this time. Ita? Yeah, no worries. Still here. What's going on? Not sure. I think... He froze, chills running down his spine. A presence suddenly materialized behind him, a gust of warm air making the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Shut up finally, would you? He didn't even manage to yelp, barely registering the cold steel against his throat before the chill was replaced by hot tickling down his neck. His breath hitched, only a wet gurgle leaving his mouth instead as he fell on one knee. Heita! He instinctively pressed his hand against his throat, feeling the hot blood flowing through his fingers. Oh fuck. At the very edge of his consciousness, he realized the footsteps were now moving away, but then his whole mind was absorbed by much more pressing matters. He searched around the snow for his phone with his free hand, the bubbly wheezing the only answer he could give to Shirabu's frightened calling of his name. Fuck. Eita! Can you speak? Another gurgle escaped his mouth, his chest heaving as he tried in vain to take a proper breath. Okay. Press against the wound. Keep up the pressure, alright? I'll be there soon. Hold on, please. I'll call you help, I promise. Just hold on. His head spun, his hands trembling as he tried to keep pressure on the gash across his throat. Every breath hurt like all hell, every movement causing more blood to spill on the ground. Shirabu's voice sounded more and more hollow in his ears with every passing second, his body growing weaker with every dark drop staining the pure white snow under him. That's what they mean. Life escaping through one's fingers, huh? He coughed, the following fit stealing his last breaths as the blood filled his throat and mouth. Wavering, he barely managed to stay kneeling instead of falling over, his only remaining thought being Shirabu's voice calling his name again. Then something pushed his already weak hand more to the wound, the sudden increase of pressure tearing a hiss from him.
Hold on, please. The help will be here soon, I promise.
He couldn't find the strength to look up, but he would recognize Shirabu's voice any time. Perhaps it was his mind telling him death was close, but he refused to believe Shirabu was anything but real. He knew the present. He knew the warmth it brought. Just a pity he couldn't even say goodbye.
Oh, don't you dare! Eita!
He clung to the voice with every last bit of consciousness he had left and pushed through the darkness, slowly taking hold of him. If he was going to go down, it wasn't going to be without a fight. A wheezy gurgle fell from his lips. He coughed again, surely staining the snow and his clothes even more. His chest burned. His head hurt. Everything hurt. A wail of something he couldn't name pierced his ears. The following shouting sounded muffled to him as if he was deep underwater. And then, just as something took hold of him, all sounds disappeared. His hands trembled. Even now, as he sat in the warm hallway, away from the outside cold, his hands still trembled, most definitely making the blood from them drip on the floor. But he couldn't bring himself to care. He stared ahead, his head empty, earning a few glances from the nurses walking by. Though if they were of bewilderment or pity, he couldn't tell. It didn't matter anyway. Ever since the paramedics took Semi into the ambulance and traced them to the hospital, he was moving on autopilot, doing what a doctor would without thought. And now, he couldn't even bring himself to go wash the blood from his hands. His boyfriend's blood. Ice-cold shivers ran down his spine when he recalled the image of Semi kneeling slumped in the snow, dark blood flowing almost freely from his obviously cut throat. Despite being only half conscious when he found him, Semi still managed to hold the pressure on the slash, but that was only of a little comfort to him. This isn't happening. I have to wake up any minute, right? This isn't real. It's just a nightmare. Please be a nightmare. Please. Alas, he didn't have to pinch himself to know it was just a wish falling on deaf ears. His boyfriend, the love of his life, was now fighting for his own life, and he couldn't do anything to help. Just wait and pray. Their call, the last words he heard Semi say, repeated in his head, the memory of the choked gurgling that followed turning his stomach. Despite it not being the first time he heard someone choking on their own breath and blood, this was worse than anything he had seen in his medical career, ever. And there was nothing he could do. This is a nightmare. His gaze straight to the door leading into the operating room, his vision blurry. Please be okay. Don't you dare to give up. Don't you dare. Shirabu-san? He looked up, through the mist recognizing one of the nurses he worked with occasionally. You should go wash your hands. It's not healthy to stay this bloodied. It's my boyfriend. I know his medical history. I know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to imply your partner might be ill. But you've been sitting here like this for over 2 hours now, and it might help your mental health too. Shirabu paused. Was it really that long already? I can wait here until you come back if you want, in case something changes. Shirabu sighed and looked away, but deep down, he knew the woman was right. Slightly wobbly on his feet, he got up and headed to the bathroom, giving the nurse a nod of thanks. He scrubbed his hands clean, having to remind himself several times not to scrub too harshly to damage his skin. A breeding ground for infection was the last thing they needed right now. A sudden wave of weakness washed over him, forcing him to lean on the sink for support. He knew the prognosis of a slashed throat. He was trained for that after all. Even if Semi got incredibly lucky, there was no way of telling how serious the lasting effects could be. Scars would heal, blood would be replaced, but the problems could be significant, impacting heavily Semi's future life. If there's going to be any after today. He froze, horrified by that thought. He quickly shooed it away, refusing to entertain the dark possibility for even a second longer. He's going to be fine. Even if he will have some lasting effects, we can work with that. It's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. He rushed back to where he sat before, settling on the chair again to continue his vigil. He's going to be all right. He wasn't sure how much time had passed since their arrival until the door finally opened. The surgeon nodded at him, giving him a sympathetic look when he sprang up from the chair. How is he? He's alive. Shirabu had never felt such relief in his life before. Tears entered his eyes as he took a shaky breath, thanking all the deities who listened to his earlier prayers. But the cold reality brought him back down very fast. How bad is it? He got lucky. The blade missed the major arteries, so the blood loss is bad, but not critical. However, his larynx suffered the most damage, and it's difficult to say how much impact it will have for the future. Plus, there's severe damage to his neck muscles. He's young and might heal fast and have no major issues, but there's also a possibility the damage was so severe his throat won't function normally again in the future. And unfortunately, he might have to go through another surgery to restore his vocal cords. That's all I can tell you right now. The world spun with Shirabu, the weight of the doctor's words fully downing on him. His boyfriend had his throat slashed. His airways got cut. The muscles in his neck were destroyed, as probably were his vocal cords, and no one could tell how much damage that would cause in the future. Could that even be called lucky? He's alive. That is lucky. Can I see him? Just for a while, please. The doctor seemed to think for a while before giving him a nod. I think that could be arranged. He has to go through a post-surgery checkup first, though. That's okay. I can wait a bit more. I just want to see him. Make sure he's alive. The doctor seemed to understand and lightly tapped on his shoulder, giving him a reassuring smile. He's a strong guy. I'm sure he will be okay soon, especially since he has you to take care of him. With that, he motioned for Shirabu to wait and headed back to change, while Shirabu collapsed back on the chair, the tears of relief rolling freely down his cheeks. About half an hour of waiting later, he was finally allowed to cross the threshold of the ICU. His throat closed when he spotted Semi wrapped in tubes and connected to all kinds of monitors, but the steady beeping of the heart monitor and slowly rising and falling chest somewhat soothed his strained nerves. He carefully caressed Semi's hand, resisting the urge to lean down to kiss his forehead. Instead, he gave his fingers a gentle squeeze, a silent promise to be there when he wakes up. Everything's going to be okay. You'll see. I'll take care of you, I promise. Of course, he didn't get any response, but that was fine. Semi was alive. He was breathing, and his heart was beating. Nothing else mattered. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I mean, it's angst slash Whump, of course you enjoyed, I know you. Anyway, so this was a little taste, let's say, of what you can expect from Diecember. Also, this is part of the main storyline, so just be prepared, this thing is not done. It's probably not going to have any aftermath because I have a lot on my plate for December. But when I get back to challenges and that storyline, it's going to come into play. So I hope you are looking forward to that, because it's going to be very interesting. Like, Shirabu wasn't kidding about the prognosis. So let's see. If you have any requests or ideas, the request form is linked in the video description. See you next time.